When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. Yet I was already in so many ways the man I would become. I think back on how cold I was, even then. It is hard to recall now that I burn with this dry, feverish fire, but cold I certainly was. There was ice built around my heart, years of it. How could it have been otherwise? The manse at Auchtermill saw to that. I have walked and run through this world, pretending emotions rather than feeling them. Oh, I could feel pain, physical pain, but I had to imagine joy, sorrow, anger. As for love, I didn't know what it meant. But I learned early to keep myself well disguised. To the world at large, I was just Gideon Mack, a dutiful wee boy growing in the shadow of his father and of the kirk. As that wee boy, I was taught that, solitary though I might be, I was never alone. Always there was one who walked beside me. I could not see him, but he was there, constant at my side. I wanted to know him, to love and be loved by him. But he did not reveal himself. He frightened me. I had neither the courage to reject him, nor the capacity to embrace him. This is the hard lesson of my life. Love is not in us from the beginning, like an instinct. Love is no more original to human beings than sin. Like sin, it has to be learned. Then I put away childish things, and for years I thought I saw with the clarity of reason. I did not believe in anything I could not see. I mocked at shadows and sprites. That constant companion was not there at all. I did not believe in him, and he did not reveal himself to me. Yet, through circumstances and through choice, I was to become his servant, a minister of religion. How ironic this is, and yet how natural, as if the path were laid out for me from birth. And though I wandered a little from it, distracted or deluded, here and there, yet I was always bound to return to it again. And all the while this fire was burning deep inside me, I kept it battened down, the door of the furnace tightly shut, because that seemed necessary in order to get through life. I never savoured life for what it was. I only wanted to get to the next stage of it. I wish now I'd taken a little more time. But it is too late for such regrets. I was like the child in the cinema, whose chief anticipation lies not in the film, but in wondering what he will do after it is over. I was the reader who hurries through a 500-page novel, not to see what will happen, but simply to get to the end. And now, despite everything, I am there. And for this I must thank that other companion, in whom also I did not believe, but who has shown me a way through the shadows and beyond the shadows. I have not preached for weeks, yet I am full of texts. If I am a prophet, then I have yet to be heard. If I am Jonah, then the fish has vomited me out, but nobody believes where I have been. Nobody except the one who saved me from the belly of hell. Who am I? I am Gideon Mack, time server, charlatan, hypocrite, God's grovelling apologist, the man who saw the stone, the man that was drowned and that the waters gave back, the mad minister who met with the devil and lived to tell the tale. And hence my third, non-scriptural text. For what is religion if not a kind of madness? And what is madness without a touch of religion? And yet there is peace and sanctuary in religion too. It is the asylum to which all poor crazed sinners may come at last. The door which will always open to us if we can only find the courage to knock. Few suspected it, but all my life was a lie. From the age of 9, when through deceit I almost succeeded in killing my father, all my words were spoken with the tongue of a serpent, and what love I gave or felt came from a dissembling heart. Then I saw the stone, and nothing was the same again. This is my testimony. Read it and believe it, or believe it not. You may judge me a liar, a cheat, a madman. I do not care. I am beyond questions of probity or sanity now. I am at the gates of the realm of knowledge, and one day soon I will pass through them. Chapter 2. A misty Saturday afternoon in early January, cold heart of the winter, the start of this year of revelation. I am running through Keldo Woods on the forestry workers' track, my mind tuned to the clean sound of my breathing and the slap of my trainer's soles as they crack frost-veined dubs and spatter icy mud up my shins. I turn off the track and onto a narrow footpath that climbs slightly as it winds through the trees. After a few hundred yards it levels out, then divides in two. I go left, then at another fork left again. I remember all this as clearly as if I had it on film. In fact, sitting by the fire remembering is a little like watching a film. By now I am deep in the woods where few people venture, but there comes an open area where the tall pines give way to tummocks of coarse grass and thick springy moss cushions that turn green in summer, but are frosted and brown on this wintry day. And there it is, to the right of the path, in the middle of this space, a stone looming in the mist, like a great tooth in a mouth full of smoke. It brings me to a sudden and astonished halt. I remember my breath coming in hard puffs, punched into the darkening air. The sweat began to run off my brow, stinging my eyes, obscuring my vision. I lifted the front of my sweatshirt and wiped my face and head on it, closed my eyes and pictured what I imagined I'd seen. Then I looked again. 20 yards away, it was still there. I stared at it intensely. Did I have some subconscious notion that this might make it vanish, or move, or speak, or make me come to my senses? I have no idea. Perhaps I just didn't know what else to do. Anyway, I stared for a long time, and the stone, not surprisingly, was quite impassive to my stare. I stepped off the path and crunched over the spongy, ice-laced ground to where the stone stood. It rose 3 feet taller than me, a lichen blotched molar, a giant's blunt pencil, a solitary petrified staub. I know very little about rocks. I knew even less then. I couldn't have said with any confidence what it was, except it wasn't sandstone, the predominant rock of this area. Later I identified it from a geology textbook as being probably metamorphic genus. It was grey, mostly, but with streaks of other shades, and spotted with dots of dull glassiness. Centuries of rain and wind, it seemed, had in some places smoothed, and in others wrinkled the surfaces. It looked as if it were made up of layers of stone melted and fused one on top of the other. A fossilized ice lolly, with its stick long since rotted away. It looked as if it had been there forever. But it hadn't been there 2 days earlier, when I'd come that way for the first run of the year. I was sure of it. The first day in the first run. For 14 years I've been running the byways of the countryside around Monmouthmasket. I reckoned I knew them as well as anyone. It wasn't one of my regular routes. In fact, when I'd run it on the Thursday for the first time in months, it was like renewing a forgotten acquaintance, which is why I'd come again so soon. But I'd done it often enough to know that there'd not been a stone there before. There had never been a stone there. I was sure of it. I put out my hand and tentatively, as if expecting an electric shock, let the backs of my fingers brush over the cold surface. Then I pressed my palm against it, leaning into it the way I did against the door jamb when warming up to stretch the muscles in the backs of my legs. What was I expecting? That it would shift a little? Maybe even topple or crumble to dust? It didn't even flinch.